Hey, thanks for stopping by to watch this video. I'm thrilled to be presenting at this year's Platform Con, and I'm really looking forward to this session. It's called The New Stack, Securing and Observing APIs, Event Streams, and AI Workflows, and it's really about how platform teams can govern the next generation of digital interactions. By way of introduction, my name is Chris Dutoy, Product Marketing at Gravity. So let's get started. It's helpful to begin our journey by looking at the world we, i.e. platform engineers, had to manage previously. It was a much simpler time. You typically maybe just had REST APIs, one or two gateways at best, with basic API security and logging. So you could do things like rate limiting and auditing as clients were calling APIs. You had one gateway intercepting those calls and doing basic API manipulation on those API calls. And that was a great time. Life was good as a platform engineer. But the world is changing. Yesterday it was just APIs, and even there, those APIs are getting more complicated. It's no longer just REST APIs, it's gRPC, SSE, webhooks, and more. And it's a multitude of API gateways, and you don't have a centralized view of all your APIs because you're using 5 different gateways from 5 different vendors, different protocols. You don't even know which APIs you have in your organization, never mind exposing these to developers and giving them a nice developer portal to see which APIs they can subscribe to. So that by itself has gotten very complicated. And today we're seeing this move into event streaming, and companies want to start leveraging their Kafka data and make it available to external consumers. It's no longer sufficient just to keep all that Kafka data as in-house data stores. There's a lot of monetization and productization that you can do behind that Kafka data. But you have a lot of security concerns when you try and externalize this data. The event developer experience is poor. You don't have developer portals. There's no self-service subscription capability to subscribe to an event stream. So again, you get inconsistent security. It's hard to monetize your events. And you're even getting to broker sprawl now. You've got multiple Kafka gateways, maybe Solace, maybe Red Panda. It's just becoming quite a sprawl within larger enterprises. And then now, looking forward to tomorrow, we're facing the advent of agents and agentic AI systems. And honestly, right now, it's the Wild West when it comes to security and governance, discoverability of these agents. There's very little control as to how agent-to-agent communication happens and agent-to-LLM communication happens. And a lack of discoverability, not even knowing which agents you have, and governance, observability, understanding how agents are interacting with each other. It truly is the Wild West. And my message here is that platform teams are going to need to wrestle with all three of these: APIs, events, and agents. So it's a big ask. It's a tall order. So you've got to get ready for this kind of world. So when we zoom out and we look at these top challenges for platform teams that manage APIs, and the fact is that APIs aren't just REST anymore. You've got streams to add into that, event streams. You've got agents and agentic AI. REST by itself is no longer just the dominant API choice. It's gRPC and WebSockets and webhooks and SSE. So APIs by themselves got more complex. Now you add streams and agents to the mix. And securing APIs is harder. And I put APIs in quotes here because I mean it in the broader sense, traditional APIs, but also your event streams and your agentic AI systems. So securing these APIs is harder with dynamic, unpredictable traffic. This is especially apparent with agentic AI systems where you don't always know how they got the result that they got. They operate in somewhat of an autonomous manner, and the output is often non-deterministic in that the same query can be run twice and you get two different results. And so securing this is very difficult. There's a lack of unified observability across APIs, streams, and agent workflows. Understanding how a result was achieved across multiple workflows, it might be that you've got an agentic AI system that's using a backend Kafka stream, it's using an API. All of these things have to work together. So observability into any one of those is nice, but it's not sufficient. You kind of need unified observability across all three of those. Fourth, you've got this pressure to balance governance with developer speed and autonomy. It really is all about the developer experience these days. You want to empower developers, you want to get them up and running, self-serve, subscribe to your APIs or your agents. And of course, as a platform engineering team, you've got to balance all of that speed with governance. And that's a tricky balance to find. What's the right level of risk versus reward? And it's a lot of pressure on platform engineering teams to figure that out. And finally, you got this aspect of managing APIs across multiple gateways. So typically in an enterprise now, you're going to find it's not a single API gateway from one vendor. You might have 4 or 5 gateways spanning multiple vendors, multiple cloud environments, multiple protocols. So how do you manage all of this in such a complex environment? If only we were standardized on one gateway, one cloud, and one protocol, life would be sweet. But that's not the reality that we and you live in. Now, I mentioned agentic AI and agents, and you might be thinking, well, that's not really my problem. We don't have agentic AI in our organization. And if you're currently not contending with agentic AI, don't think you can relax. It isn't coming. It's actually already here. But if it hasn't reached your organization yet, get ready. We conducted a survey of over 300 IT professionals, and a whopping 72.9% said they're actively using agentic systems in their organization today already. And another 17% said within the next 12 months they'll be using it. Only 4% said they don't have plans to use them. And I venture to bet those 4% are probably not the innovators, and at some point they're going to wake up and realize they actually do need to implement this. So it is coming. Ask yourself where your organization sits in this spectrum. And if you're not using it yet, it probably is coming. Now, the interesting thing about agentic AI is it is evolving at a light speed. I've never seen technology move at this pace, and it's almost putting Moore's law to shame. And we can already talk about things like agentic 1.0, 2.0, and 3.0. There's already versions and maturity levels of agentic AI. And let's compare it when we look at how agentic AI started and AI gateway started. We can compare it very much to traditional API management, where you had a client depicted here on the left-hand side, making a call to your APIs or services on the right-hand side. And in between, you have an API gateway or proxy, and it intercepts the traffic, and you can do things like rate limiting, routing, threat protection, preventing SQL injections, all kinds of things you can do to secure and control and govern that traffic. And that's what we saw with the rise of AI gateways, where we have clients talking to LLMs, but we want to provide some security and control. For example, you want to do prompt guarding. You want to make sure that the prompt to the LLM is not asking for sensitive information that should not be returned. You might want to rate limit requests to the LLM, because LLM token usage can be expensive. And that's why we saw the rise last year of this concept of an AI gateway in front of an LLM. But the world's moved on, and we have this concept of agentic systems. And depicted here is what a typical agent might look like. So you have an agent, and an agent can talk to LLMs. It can talk to multiple LLMs. An agent also has access to tools. Agents by themselves, just with an LLM, are somewhat inherently, quote-unquote, dumb. The LLM is trained on historical data, and it's good at parsing information and understanding requests, but you need to provide real-time data to your agent. For example, if you're building an HR system internally, that agent would need access to your HR system. And so agents are connected to tools, in this case an HR system, and can be connected to multiple tools. And then agents can talk to agents. So you might have multiple agents in an agentic system that all inter-orchestrate and communicate with each other to reach a final result. Now, agent-to-tool communication, we've already seen the emergence of a protocol called MCP, Model Context Protocol, to standardize how tools are made available to agents. And then for agent-to-agent communication, one of the leading protocols coming out there, or frameworks, is from Google A2A, which is the agent-to-agent protocol, which are ways of facilitating agent-to-agent communication. But this is what a typical agentic AI system looks like. Which takes us to the concept of an agent mesh. It's no longer sufficient just to have that gateway in front of the LLM. What you can see is, yes, we do need a gateway between the agent and the LLM. We need a gateway between the client and the agent. We need a gateway between the agent and the tools, so that we can, provide things like which tools, security around tools, which tools does the agent have access to? Even if that's an API call, what is the domain of data that can be returned based on the agent or based on the client calling the agent? We want to control access to the LLMs. LLMs can be very expensive. So for example, if your client's a silver member, we might tell the agent to use DeepSeek, which is a less expensive LLM. But if they're a VIP client, we tell the agent to use OpenAI, which is more expensive. And then you've got the agent-to-agent communications, where you need to control how agents are communicating in a somewhat autonomous manner. So you sort of need a gateway between your agents. And as I mentioned earlier, the A2A protocol is great for facilitating and controlling that agent-to-agent communication. You've seen the agentic systems. Yes, it's complex, but do they really care about governance? And in that same survey that I referenced, we asked this question. We said, how important is the ability to govern and control agentic AI systems within your organization? 75% said extremely important, and 21% said somewhat important. And honestly, that 21% is going to move into the 75% once the first public hack happens on agentic AI systems. We already know that APIs are the biggest attack vector for security concerns, but it's coming with agentic AI systems too. Agentic is even more complex than APIs. So, 75% today, that's going to be 100% probably within the next 6 months. I'm just waiting for that first big news leak of an agentic AI system gone bad. Now, you might be thinking, well, I'm a platform engineer. Is this really my problem? And interestingly enough, we can see that currently only 17% of organizations are actually designating the platform engineering team as being the team that is responsible for implementing the agentic AI solution. But note this is implementation. You're going to find that as a platform team, you're probably going to inherit the implementation and be asked to secure, control, and govern this. So already you're being tasked with implementing it. Don't be lulled into a false sense of security. It's coming your way, and here is why it's coming your way. When we asked, which of the following challenges have you encountered or anticipate encountering with agentic AI systems, it was a stack rank, but the top two, you can see integration with existing systems and data privacy and security concerns. These are top priorities, and surprise, surprise, that's going to fall on the platform engineering team. So even if you have not been tasked with implementation, you're going to be tasked with security control and governance. So get ready for it. So what's really needed? It's this concept of unified governance, and depicted here on the right is, when governance is a vague term or ambiguous term, I really mean it's three primary things: security and control, discoverability, and observability. You need to secure and control APIs, event streams, agents. You need to discover them, have them in a centralized catalog internally to a developer portal externally, and observability across all three of those APIs, event streams, and agentic systems. It's no longer satisfactory or suitable to have observability siloed across those. You need observability across all of those. You need protocol agnostic governance, because you can't go in a siloed approach again of saying, well, I've got governance here for my REST APIs and maybe my event streams, but then agentic systems aren't governed. So you need to figure out a way of how do you provide governance across all three of those. I mentioned before about the developer experience, but it doesn't help to have three different catalogs or developer portals, and now a developer has to try and figure out where those live. You need one developer portal that has all your APIs from all your gateways in the organizations, all your event streams, and all your agentic systems, all in one place where developers can come, subscribe, they can see what's available, see the documentation, and having some control over that subscription process as well. And finally, intelligent policy informants and visibility across everything. Just as I might want to rate limit requests to an API, I might want to rate limit requests to my Kafka stream, and I might want to rate limit requests to an LLM or my agentic system. And just using rate limiting as an example, there could be traffic shaping, it could be a security, authentication, authorization, all different kinds of policies that you might want to enforce, but you need to enforce that across everything. Again, you can't operate in a siloed manner. At Gravity, this is the approach that we took where, depicted at the bottom, there's three main pillars. We have API management, event management, and agent mesh. And all three of those come into one unified catalog and developer portal. So you get that consistent governance and developer portal across all three of those domains. And that's what we term agentic API and event management, which is where we believe the future is going for API management. So in conclusion, what I'd like to say is that governance doesn't need to be a blocker. It can be a platform accelerator. Now, what do I mean by that? Like, governance often has an association of bureaucracy, red tape, slow, it's a bottleneck, you're slowing down our delivery. And that doesn't need to be the case. Yes, you have to find this balance of improving the developer experience without sacrificing too much from a governance perspective. But if you can find that balance, guess what? Governance isn't a blocker at that point. It's a platform accelerator. You've provided a unified platform. You've enabled developers to rapidly use your APIs, event streams, and agentic systems, but you've got that governance. You haven't sacrificed governance. Again, governance can be a platform accelerator. And finally, I'd say own the complexity, lead the future. You saw that, it's coming your way. It's coming to the platform teams. You might as well get ahead of this because you don't want to inherit a bunch of different agentic systems and streams and API management solutions. And now you're dealing with the complexity of trying to manage, own, and control and governance, secure all of this. So you can inject yourself, and you should inject yourself organizationally to lead the future. Be part of the selection process of how agentic systems are going to be built. How are they going to interact with event streams and APIs? How do you govern that entire ecosystem? So own the complexity and lead the future. That's what platform engineering teams do. That concludes our whirlwind tour of looking at APIs, event streams, and agentic systems and how we're going to manage those in 2025 and beyond. I love talking about these things. If you enjoyed this session, if you want to let me know kind of what things you're looking at, issues that your organization is facing, just chat generally about agentic. Always welcome to get some correspondence from you and start a chat. My email address is there. You can visit our company as well at gravity.io, but I would love to hear from you. I hope you enjoyed this session. Enjoy the rest of PlatformCon, and I hope it's a very productive and educational time for you, and I'll see you in another session.